Welcome back to Hidden Narratives. In case you weren't paying attention, our last episode was... Well, actually, the last episode you will have heard will be Monty Python's Life of Brian, which will be coming out tonight. I say that as we record this. This will be coming out Thursday. We also recorded Monty Python's Holy Grail, and I want to thank everybody for making that our number one viewed video so far. I'm pretty sure that me and Thomas only accounted for about 100 of them. So we'll see. We were pretty enthralled with ourselves, to be honest. So there it is. But tonight we're talking about Apollo 13, a 1995 film directed by Ron Howard, starring Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Bill Paxton, Gary Sinise, Ed Harris, and Kathleen Quinlan. It's based on the book Lost Moon by Jim Lovell and Jeffrey Kluger. And before we talk about the movie, I will point out that one of the reasons we're doing Apollo 13 tonight is because Jim Lovell passed away on August 7th at 97 years old, and we'll talk a lot more about him and his life as we go. But that's why we're doing this movie.
Taken too soon.
Indeed.
97 years young. He had so much left.
He did. At least another 3. I feel like 100 is a good number. But
I feel like 100 is too many.
Yeah, well, I'm at 40 right now, so another 60 years does sound exhausting.
That's just too much, man.
Yeah, I guess at the current pace, it does feel a little exhausting.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I'm with you there.
if I make it another 30, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. It seems like asking enough of my body without being greedy. Anyway, all right. So the opening setup of the film begins with astronaut Jim Lovell, played by Tom Hanks, hosting a party to celebrate the Apollo 11 moon landing. Lovell, who is an Apollo astronaut himself, orbited the moon on Apollo 8 and is slated to command Apollo 14, but due to crew reshuffling, he gets bumped to Apollo 13. His crew includes Fred Hayes, played by Bill Paxton, Ken Mattingly, played by Gary Sinise. However, Ken Mattingly is replaced by Jack Swigert, Kevin Bacon, days before launch due to potential exposure to measles. Now, because I did not write a summary for this movie, we're just going to do segment by segment as we go. So we'll just talk about the opening scenes that we can remember, because I watched it fairly recently, so we're in good shape there. But yeah, so the movie opens with the scene in the party at Jim Lovell's house. You get a chance to meet his family, actually in full, because his youngest children are there. His oldest son is there, who is on leave from military school. And Lovell quickly...
We can assume he's very misbehaved as a child.
Well, not so much probably with the Lovells, because Jim was...
not anymore, Grant. Not anymore.
But... So you meet the whole family, you meet the wife, and he's bought the remainder of what's left of Houston champagne to celebrate the night, which happens to be July 11th, 1969. July 11th, 1969, the year we landed Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon. So he's got his existing crew for Apollo, what will be, at this time, Apollo 14, which is Gary Sinise's character, Ken Mattingly, and Bill Paxton. They're discussing the upcoming mission, and a little bit of a foreshadowing here. We get to meet Kevin Bacon. He is explaining in detail how the docking of 2 spaceships works in space, and he's demonstrating this with a glass and a beer bottle, and he's speaking to a very lovely woman who is seemingly engrossed in his conversation about this, and he's just eloquently stating how when it slides right in there, it just locks in perfectly. It's just like...
The imagery is palpable.
Instantly phallic. Which, we are going to be sitting atop explosive rockets very soon, so...
Do you think each individual astronaut got to, help write who their character was? Because it feels like the astronaut that Kevin Bacon was playing, Swigert, definitely was like, okay, Mr. Ron Howard, if you had to sum me up in one word, I'd say coxman.
Well, he didn't have to say that, because in real life, Jack Swigert, during the post-flight press conference, they made a joke about how Jack Swigert, being lost on Apollo 13 all that time, had a whole bunch of stewardesses across America feeling angsty. So he was well known to be a coxman. So Ron said, Kevin, be a coxman. And he dove right in. Hey, it works. And honestly, all of the astronauts had a port in every storm, from what I can tell. The Lovells and the Armstrongs may have been the exceptions on that front. From everything I've read, they were quite busy getting about the sandy beaches of Cape Canaveral. And
was Lovell was he the one that the astronaut that drove was it like all the other ones drove Corvettes, but he drove like a really fuel efficient car, like the Impala or something like that?
Yeah, I don't think so, because in the opening scene of this, not the party, is him in a car, I thought.
In the movie, he's definitely in the Corvette that all the astronauts had. Yeah. But Tyler, you might be right about him having but it might be Armstrong that had the different car. Because he was not.
It might be.
He was even more tight-laced. I think Lovell was down to clown. He just...
Because all the astronauts got the Corvettes for $1, but that one of them actually just did it because they enjoyed having good gas mileage. And I was like, that seems more like a modern-day astronaut, not like a 1960s, 1970s astronaut. Like, I want them going balls to the wall in their cars, not be like, well, actually...
they live by economy. They live by the danger thrill ride anyway, so you might as well let them do it when they're at home.
Technically, the modern day astronaut stranded in space would trade places with the Apollo 13 15 times over, because they get stranded a lot less time than modern day astronauts do in space.
Oh, clever pop culture joke. I don't remember.
There's one woman who's alive who's been stranded twice for over a year. I mean, how does...
Well, one person's stranding is another person's extended science mission, but we can cover
pack for a week.
We'll do a podcast on planetary science another day. So we get a pretty great introduction to all the cast and characters that we need to know about, specifically Kevin Bacon. So they leave the party and they're driving. I don't know where they're driving, going somewhere else, and they have a discussion about the kids and all that stuff, and then it cuts to Jim Lovell, Tom Hanks. He is in the assembly building where they build the rocket, and he's doing a tour, and he gets interrupted, and Deke Slayton, who's the director of astronauts, comes over, and he's like, okay, so here's the deal. Alan Shepard has an ear infection, and so he cannot fly Apollo 13. Right. So we're bumping your crew up. You're Apollo 13
That's
now.
Right.
And he's like, excellent. And then he goes home, tells his wife, we're going on to the moon instead of to our vacation spot. Bums for you. I'll be flying to the moon. You guys do whatever you want.
I'm going.
Yeah.
You're
Here's
not.
the thing. I'm canceling our vacation, and then I'm going to the moon. See you guys later.
You didn't hear me. I'm canceling your vacation.
Mm-hmm. My vacation just got severely upgraded, and you're staying here. But
so exclusive. My seating so exclusive.
Yeah.
First class ain't got nothing on this.
Exactly. So then his wife, played by Kathleen Quinlan, this is Marilyn Lovell, and she's like, oh, great, going to the moon, and it's lucky number 13. And he's like, yep, comes after 12. And so there's the early indication that there's bad luck with this particular mission, whether you believe in luck or not.
And then
foreshadowing
he just went down a bunch of ladders and walked right underneath them. Yep. There was a deleted scene where he was found murdering a trove of black cats
and unicorns simultaneously
for time.
Yeah, you can only
added to the story.
You got to do the science. You don't need to show the world all of the nitty gritty.
You don't even need to believe in the science. Exactly. You know
Exactly.
what is bad luck if not just another contrivance that we all pretend exists that it does not.
Right. So
we all know this is a science fiction movie anyways, because the world is flat. You're not going to the moon.
We didn't go to the moon.
True. Truer words never said on that one.
So right after they've made their thumbed their noses at luck, it is come to the attention of the flight surgeon that Ken Mattingly has been exposed to the measles, and the entire crew has. But the other two guys have had the measles, so they are immune to a further outbreak. And so it is given to Jim Lovell to decide whether or not Ken Mattingly, played by Gary Sinise, is going to go on the mission with them, and they will wait for Apollo 14, or he gets bumped from this crew. They pull up Jack Swigert, and this crew goes on Apollo 13. So sorry for your loss. Again, canceling a vacation for someone other than himself. Jim Lovell decides to go ahead and proceed with Apollo 13 without Ken Mattingly.
And I want to make this clear. Whenever Jack Swigert is alerted that he is, in fact, going to go on this next space mission, they make sure that he is only recently decoupled from a lady.
Undocked.
Sitting there naked, ready to go back for bang number 38 stewardess waiting in the den, apparently.
Look, Thomas, you got to practice docking procedures before an important mission. as the backup crew, he's just doing his job to be ready when called.
Yeah. But again, they asked one more time. You got nothing else you want to give to this character? Coxman, I said. Listen to me, Ron. Coxman.
Jack, we got it.
Come on.
We'll get you. We'll depict you properly. We'll find the guy. Everybody knows it's Kevin Bacon.
The only reason I was even selected to go to space is because I would not stop fucking here on Earth.
Talking about
couldn't
docking.
Make me stop. They literally launched me into space. Because of the Coxman.
I was doing that pitch that you guys saw earlier to every girl I saw, and somebody from NASA saw me do it, and they were like, "That motherfucker needs to go to space." He understands docking really well. So
he knows how to start those tanks.
Don't get him off the globe right now. Seriously,
start those tanks, Tyler.
I mean, like he's starting to catch fire because of friction.
Exactly. So they get into the training modules to get Jack Swigert up to speed. Kevin Bacon turns them all into actual bacon by burning them up in the simulator time and time again because he's a little bit too much of a hot shot. And
those leftover thrusting motions.
Well, yeah, I mean he's a little
who can land.
He's over calibrated for this role because this is a more gentle type of docking than he's used to. So he's got to reel it back a little bit.
We were going back to her.
I wasn't sure if we were going to make this podcast funny because it's a pretty somber movie.
There's way too many funny things.
Well, we're pretty funny people, so it's really kind of just part of the mix. So they
don't you correct us?
Yeah, absolutely not. I'm just laughing at my own misconception. So yeah, they finally get trained up. They decide to go ahead and launch. They launch. They have one engine failure midway up. They're like, "We're good. Let's keep going." And then in horror movie fashion, somebody says, "Well, that's our glitch for the mission."
Yeah, the last one.
Which for most rocket launches at that period of time, one major glitch was par for the course, but that was about as far as it went for the most part.
Because most of the time, if there was a major glitch, they exploded.
Yep. There's really only so many glitches you can have with explosive rocket propellant, but they make it into orbit. They then go ahead with the translunar injection orbit burn, so they are on their way to the moon. They get about 55 hours out from the moon. They do a broadcast to what they think is the entire planet. Unfortunately for them, none of it is broadcast. Nobody cares anymore.
We know a little something about that.
Yeah. We landed on the moon in Apollo 11. Apollo 12, we landed on the moon more accurately. And Apollo 13, nobody was even aware it was happening. They were just like, snooze.
When's the last time y'all watched a Tesla launch? I'm asking the two wrong people to ask that to.
Only one Tesla launch, but the SpaceX ones you're talking about, I've seen some. But what I mean. Not a lot recently.
I've actually seen one from where I'm sitting right now before, actually.
Nice.
Well, the wrong people. But yeah, I mean, like they do get a lot of views.
It was actually, but to be clear, I did not know it was happening. Suddenly, I just see like something suddenly start to like shoot up, just as like the sun's like going down. I was like, "Fuck!"
In present day America, that is not a good thing. You're like, no.
I see those pictures posted a lot on Reddit of people that see the rocket launch, and there's a certain area of space where it gets to where they do a detachment or something, and it's a big plume of chemtrail or whatever they call it, and people are like, "What the hell is that?"
Weather?
It's just a rocket launch.
Altering.
Yeah, no.
Every now and then, SpaceX will just launch one that explodes and just across the.
Yeah, they do that a lot. Yeah, that's their new thing. They take those big ass rockets, they blow them up halfway up, and just scatter it everywhere. They don't care.
Yeah, there's a lot of trash. Don't worry about it. It's only turtles and seagulls.
Who's going to hold them accountable anyway? So.
Anyways, electric vehicles.
Yeah, but so yeah, I mean, America's tuned out. We have a pretty short attention span in general, and except for, as Thomas pointed out, space nerds like me and Tyler, most people had no idea when the last rocket launch was, or when the next one will be, or why we'd be doing such a thing. So anyway, to that point though, they do their broadcast to no one, and then they turn the cameras off. And the last thing NASA tells them to do before going Betty buys is to stir the oxygen tanks so that doesn't get stuck in the tanks. And they need the oxygen for a lot of things, power and obviously breathing. Life support's key.
Yes.
But unfortunately, when Mr. Swigert, aka Kevin Bacon, stirs those tanks, something breaks. They hear a bang. They get some shimmies. There's a lot of problems in the spacecraft. There's a lot of communication going back and forth with them in NASA. And they're like, "We got some shimmies and some bangs." And, you hear come again, and he goes, Houston, we've had a problem.
And Swaggart, at that point, you find, has been just, banging some wall of some sort. He was stirring that oxygen, but he was stirring with his own swivel stick. That's what he was doing.
He was swivel sticking the oxygen tank.
Ironically, being in Houston last week, although just there for purely just work purposes, I don't know why that is the 4th largest city in the country, though.
It's just a slum.
Nice. I mean, I realize that I am like living in California and getting like mountains and like actually getting like geography.
Yeah,
is like something I've gotten like kind of used to, but we
can see the palm trees in the reflection of your window.
Yeah.
Okay, so the explosion happens on the spacecraft, or something happens anyway, and you get the
movie really begins.
You get the panic going on in mission control. The guys up in the spacecraft are not panicking, but they're like, we got problems, and they're rapidly going through all of their checklists to make sure they've covered their bases. And at some point, Jim Lovell looks into his side view mirror, and he sees that they are venting something into space. And there's only one thing they can be venting, and that's the oxygen. And he makes that call into Houston.
They could have been venting urine. We did see that.
They could have been venting urine, but as they had not done any urine dumps, and they had checked that particular statistic before they made this statement, they did know that. And so this is one of the cooler things in movie, like in filmmaking tricks, that comes next. So he makes the call down to Houston that we are venting something into space. And they do a close-up shot of Ed Harris, who's playing Gene Kranz, who's the flight director on this mission. And they do the close-up shot at the same time as they zoom back out with the camera. Like they physically move the camera as they zoom in. So the background appears to disappear as his face gets closer. So it's this weird like double effect that I've always loved in movies, but it's really effective in this particular scene. Because everybody realizes if you're venting oxygen, you have a serious problem that may or may not end with your deaths. And so the panic is kind of real at that point in Houston. And, they've tried to hope it was instrumentation failure, but as Ed Harris has pointed out, they're talking about bangs and shimmies. That's not instrumentation. And it's quickly revealed that they are venting oxygen and they have lost power to their main power cells. And so in short order, they realize that not only are they not going to land on the moon, they're in real deep shit as far as getting home alive goes. And yeah, Tyler, like you said, the movie gets going. And even though literally nothing happens outside of the space capsule that's in any way action based, it's still the most dramatic like hour and a half of a film, especially as far as space movies go, that I can remember seeing, because you've got excellent music to begin with, and the story itself is riveting, because every time they have a problem, which the first one is we're losing oxygen and we're losing power, they have to go into like not just emergency planning mode, like rapidly accelerated planning emergency mode, and you get a lot of interesting dynamics that way. But anyway, did you guys have any thoughts on that whole build up to, and then the actual scene itself that we get Houston, we have a problem, and the movie goes? Tyler, do you have any thoughts first?
Yeah, so I'd say my first thought was this movie came out in 97, 98?
5.
1995?
Yep.
Man.
Wow. Okay, so even more impressed, because I did want to just comment that the actual launch sequence when they do lift off, I haven't seen the movie. I mean, I saw it within like the last year or so, but the special effects on that still holds up.
Yeah.
Like the special effects in the movie do feel, I mean, I'm sure maybe with our 8K with 4,000 resolution sort of stuff, some of it might not necessarily look as crisp and as amazing as it did at the time, but it still feels like you're watching it actually happen,
right?
And it's not just a computer slop.
That was just like used footage, though, wasn't it?
No, they actually did. No, they did CGI, but they very closely mimicked an actual Saturn V rocket launch. And one of the reasons it looked as real as it did is because when you do launch a rocket like that, you get the initial blast, and so you get this huge plume of fire and smoke. But then as the rocket starts blasting downwards, it creates a vacuum, and it pulls all that stuff back into the launch chamber. So you see this big pullback, and they got that perfectly in the movie. And then they were able to otherwise make the rocket itself look very real as it launched. But no, it was all CGI.
I didn't know any of
So
that.
yeah, very, very impressed with that, especially 1995 special effects.
Yeah.
And then as far as the actual movie goes, I thought they did a good job kind of setting up that Kevin Bacon Swaggart would be the one that would screw it up, even though it would have happened if Lovell or if Paxton or if anyone else had hit the button, that was going to break anyways.
Right.
But they did kind of do a good job of being like, yeah, he's a coxman. He's irresponsible, or kind of like foreshadowing. He can come across as irresponsible, and he's the one that's going to, blow it up. Even though, of course, he wasn't actually responsible for any of that. It was an engineering mistake. But it does kind of, as for movie purposes go, and make you like, yeah, you asshole.
Reinforce the fact that he wasn't the original crew member that they had trained with, so it set up an extra dynamic, an extra thing for them.
The guy who screws up is a newbie.
Point of tension amongst them. So,
whereas
Bill Paxton's character and Coxman had kind of butted heads a little bit, but not exactly. Like, this led to that point where it's like, okay, now we can place the blame on somebody. It was a great extra little bit of conflict.
Yeah.
A nice little movie tension building, so you can actually get some character development, some actual.
I would imagine, based upon how smooth and calm and collected seemingly everyone was on that mission the entire time, because what else can you be? Because you are literally on a missile. You fix it or you don't. You die.
Freak out. Not really going anywhere.
I wouldn't imagine there was ever actually that conflict on board the Apollo 13. If there was, totally human behavior, I get it, but I just can't imagine.
Right. The movie would have been still interesting, but kind of boring if they were all just like consummate professionals the entire time and just like, I'm a really good astronaut. I was like, well, yeah, you're a really good astronaut because you're going to space. There's like 12 people in the world who are qualified to go into space. Like,
we know you did nothing wrong, sir. It's like, okay, well,
yeah. Well, and it does.
Damn Ruskies! Like, we could just throw them in there.
Yeah. No, and Tyler, to what you're saying about the tension on board, it's definitely spiced up for the movie versus what was really said. In terms of what was said on live radio, now understand that the NASA flight director's loop is a public broadcast. They can't close it out to the public unless there's an emergency. So everything that's being said between NASA and the flight itself is being broadcast to the world. And so when the actual event occurs, you hear in the background, you hear the flight director's loop. They're talking about statistics for the upcoming burn, all the telemetry on where the spacecraft actually is in space, all that stuff. And you just hear this quiet, like, Houston, we've had a problem in the background. And there's some more chatter. And then you hear flight Apollo 13 come again, and you get Houston, we've had a problem. And that's really as excited as it ever gets. Everything else that goes on after that is just a callback of numbers and procedures. It's just like, okay, we need you to close main bus A and B, and you're going to lose your ability to go to the moon. And they're like, okay, we've lost the moon, so now we're going to go to that procedure. So it is very boring in terms of how. And
also, you may die if you don't fix this oxygen thing within a certain amount of time.
And they're like, yeah, we're well aware of that. Thanks.
Okay, just so
that was the first thing we considered, boss. Appreciate the input. Yeah, exactly. So there's some underlying tension. There are like some of those scenes that we'll get to later where they're having exchanges on hot mics do get a little heated in real life because it's a very stressful situation from the minute the cabin pressure or the minute the tank explodes. So anyway, we get through that opening scene, and then lo and behold, the world is interested again. And this happens, by the way, as Marilyn Lovell is driving home from the broadcast that never went to anyone. She was there at NASA to see it, so she was one of the only people that did. And on the way home, this whole emergency happens. So she gets home and discovers the flight box that she has, which has that director's loop I was talking about, is playing at home, and she's on the phone with NASA. She's like, I don't want any more of that NASA bullshit. What's going on with my husband? And so you're like, oh, Marilyn knows. And that's one of the things that it gets talked about in a lot of movies and books, but it's a very interesting point about the astronauts, and it speaks to people of military service as well. But anytime a spouse or significant other is put in harm's way or is doing a dangerous job, and you have somebody at home has to worry about that, it's terrible for everyone. But in the particular case of the NASA astronaut wives, it was very public. So before she even wakes up the next morning, she hasn't even told her entire family exactly what's happened. there is a cadre of press on her front yard trying to establish broadcast towers so they can do live broadcasts and presumably pester them and interview them the entire time this is going on. So that had to just be awful. Thomas, do you have any thoughts on that whole dynamic?
When was this? 1970 what? 72?
Yeah, 71, I think, maybe 71, 72.
Okay, so she could have been legally arrested for operating that motor vehicle. No doubt. So,
which they don't depict her doing.
This is what happens when you give them the vote. They just start acting crazy.
Suffrage.
And
they want their own bank accounts.
Yeah. What are we gonna do? What next? No more Quaaludes?
I want to have babies.
What if they're acting all uppity and wanting to talk? I'm tired. No, so no, I mean what Grant was talking about is absolutely correct. Like the stress, of course, associated with losing you've got it all in different levels, right? So you've got the stress according to NASA and obviously the astronauts. The astronauts are worried about losing their lives, but of course beyond that, they're worried about losing themselves and their family being without them. Now you've got the NASA technicians and everyone back at Houston who are worried about the mission and the lives, but also worried about how this makes America look on a public scale. Then you got the public worried about it, and they're also kind of looking at it on a different scale of like, are we incompetent? Do we even need to spend money on this? We weren't really paying attention before. Is this a heroic situation, or are we literally just spending money to watch people get launched into space and die?
Right.
Like the amount of dynamics of stress and different things that people cared about at different times. You had the president during that time period who was also very, very much interested in this because, I mean, the Cold War back then, kind of a big thing. So... And we hadn't won at that point.
Right.
We had yet to be lucky enough for the Ruskies to start, trying to make atomic energy bases. And we didn't know Chernobyl was upcoming. I mean, thank God. But otherwise, the Soviets would have, kept on going.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's off the point. But yes, I mean, that was just kind of the weird dynamic associated with all of this. And also, it does show back to a time, and this movie is just steeped in nothing but nostalgia.
Yeah.
So everyone going into this movie knows exactly how it ends.
Right.
Everyone who is older than we are lived through it for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our parents did, and they remember exactly where they were. So, I mean, and this is also after the 60s, which I don't know. I mean, like a lot more people were being assassinated back then.
That event kind of happened roughly at the same time frame. Where 1972 is nostalgia when it came out in 1995. Like, if they were to do our nostalgia, they would have to just do like a 9/11 movie for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, this was 7 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. So, I mean, nostalgia had to almost reach past what was only just recent history at that point. So you got 1988, wasn't it? So 8 years, I guess. Yeah. 8 or 9 years, or 7 or 8 years that happened. So I mean, this was true nostalgia of the day, and also again bringing back that heroism part, because it was World War II, and it was NASA. Those were kind of the things we all knew and loved during that time period. Like, and of course, obviously trying to beat the Russians at everything for whatever reason.
Wish we were still doing that.
Well, different reasons now.
Yeah, but same idea. So
yeah, seems to be the same antagonist and protagonist over and over again, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, Tom's,
that was the wonderful part about this movie, though, is that you know what was going to end, you know how it was going to end, but it was also the appreciation of all the work, effort, and tirelessness, and it's just some patriotism too, man. It's a patriotic moment, man. This was difficult, and we can fight through it.
Well, absolutely. And to that point, they've blown out their oxygen tank.
Tyler, are you okay? No, you had that longing look in your eyes of,
no, just like listening to you guys, just staring.
He's looking at
He's lost the sunset is what he is.
I was like,
I know what he's doing. He's listening to us, and he's just looking at the sunset like, man, life is good.
I figured it out. They need to make an Apollo 13 too.
Yeah, well, Apollo 17 plus one.
Well, no, I was just thinking about how.
Again.
Oh,
Apollo 26.
I know it sounds. Yeah. I don't want to say conceited, but I was just thinking about the point that I was making. Like, oh yeah. 1972 for us, like that's how our parents, like they were kids, they were all like they lived through this whole thing, and like they you kind of talk about too when it was happening. They remember that being kids or being in high school or middle school or whatever at the time, and that event happening, and it's kind of weird, like in theory, like talking to kids now. Well, what were you doing? It's like, yeah, well, I remember in 2001.
Right.
Man, keep in mind too, that was the Vietnam War.
Yeah, no, that would have been it was Vietnam.
Yeah.
Well, that was ongoing during all of this too. So this is like the big. Everybody look at this because man, everything else sucks. So at least we're doing something right. And so it kind of was depressing that they had lost interest in Apollo 13 before the accident, but it was understandable because there was a lot of shit going on during that era. And so
Civil Rights Act.
But it was also kind of
if your
inspiring.
last name was Kennedy, it wasn't going to go well.
Yeah, there were Bobby, obviously John F. Kennedy, and then of course Martin Luther King, all assassinated in that span of time when we're trying to go to the moon and do all that stuff. So, like, this was the one thing that America could look at and say, "This we are doing well." And so, when this crisis pops up, like you said, Thomas, everybody involved, not just the astronauts, everybody, including the people they were married to or related to, were like, "Oh man." Our national pride, because that was a much bigger component of people's personalities back in that day.
It was.
And so like they're deeply concerned for their own survival, but of course beyond that they were more concerned about their sense of duty and what it would do if they failed. And even though it was not actually said in the real life scenario, it was coined by Gene Kranz, failure was not an option. They knew that whether it meant this particular mission or just the idea of the space program and the national emblem, how it was emblematic of the nation and all that stuff too.
Do you guys think that if something like a major accident happened in the International Space Station now, if it would get the kind of worldwide attention that Apollo 13 got? Or do you think there'd be a subset of people who are really concerned about it and everybody else would be like, whatever?
I think you would get coverage of it, and then you would get two types of coverage of it. There would be what's actually going on, and then there would be whatever counter narrative was going on to imply political malfeasance, because there would be that.
We literally just had two astronauts marooned in space for like 9 months.
Right.
And
marooned
we did
according
talk
to
about
one side.
Like once every 3 months to check in.
Yeah, exactly. Like they decided not to go back on the original capsule because it was flawed, and they just waited for another one. That's,
I hate to say it, but like American society's attention span is just not up for a space emergency because it's not in front of them.
No. And yeah, for some percentage of people, they'd be like, well, why are we wasting our money on spaceflight anyway? And just write it off, and they wouldn't care. So yeah, I think that, like I said about the national pride being a bigger part of people's personalities for the astronauts, I think that was generally true for everybody. And Vietnam was the first thing to start ripping it apart. And so like you had both things going on. So, in addition to the political fallout they might face if they failed, not to mention being dead, the astronauts also now have a couple other problems. They know they've lost their oxygen. They know they've lost their power. So they immediately have to scramble into the lunar module, which was not built for 3 people. Although Jack Swigert, while at the time being thought possibly the cause of the accident, turns out he designed all the systems and the procedures for the lunar module itself. So
while
he
suffering from a nasty bout of gonorrhea.
That is conjecture.
Right.
But
you say conjecture, I say gonorrhea.
Well, I did hear you. So he's well equipped to rapidly power up the lunar module.
That's
so
what the ladies say.
Yeah, exactly. So that he can dock with everybody quickly and get them all safely in the lunar module, which now serve as their lifeboat. Because in order to make it home, they're going to have to turn off everything that requires power, because... And
Jack Swigert only knew how to turn things on.
Exactly. This is a whole new ball game for him. Everybody's learning on the fly. So they power up the lunar module, which they call the LEM, so I'll say that for short. The command module has to be powered down. They don't have enough power left to get home unless they turn everything off. And they know that they will not be able to turn enough power back on to land on the moon. So that is a lost prospect immediately. And so now it's just about getting home. And so they figured out we have to turn the power off.
Although it would have been funny if like Bill Paxton would have been like, fuck it. I want to land on the moon, guys.
Like Archer.
Like, I'm going to be really uncooperative.
Guys, I'm undocking.
Do it, man.
There comes
Let's
a moment.
Fucking do it. I mean, wait,
like,
what?
Yeah, did Bill just...
No, I'm going to the fucking moon, guys. I'm sorry. I signed up for the moon. I'm going to the fucking moon, all right? Like,
exactly. You gotta
never going to get this close again. I'd kick myself if I didn't do it.
Yeah, Tyler, it makes me think of Michael Collins. He was the third astronaut on Apollo 11. And so, he took the infamous picture of the lunar module as it's descending to the moon, and in the background is the Earth. And the caption is, captured in this photograph is every human being that's ever lived or died except for Michael Collins. because he's the one that took the picture. And so you have to know, no matter what he said, and he recently passed as well, rest in peace, Michael, that he said that, it was just a joy and a pleasure and an honor to be there at all the stuff you would say. But there's no doubt in my mind that he was like, those sons of bitches. How am I the one stuck up here?
He will forever live on in my life because his name was the answer of a trivia contest in 5th grade for the Space and Aeronautics Week.
That's awesome.
And because I made it to the finals and I lost to a girl who was good and to this day, as I understand, is still good at everything. That was the question I got right before the question I inevitably got wrong. And so, yeah, Michael Collins, buddy, I'll always remember you as the guy who no one else remembers.
You talking about Christy Wilcox?
Don't say her name, but yes, of course I'm talking about Christy Wilcox. Always.
I'm saying her name because I beat her in the school spelling bee.
Okay, well, congratulations.
And then I lost immediately.
Was it onomatopoeia that took you out?
No, it was iridescent. I beat Christy in the school spelling bee.
Got you in the win in the first place.
I beat Christy in the school spelling bee, and then I went to the county spelling bee and lost on the first word to iridescent. Yeah. So I was like, well, no worries. You would have probably done better, Christy. Sorry about that.
On aeronautical trivia. Like, there was nothing that was getting by her. No, she had it down.
I don't even know how I beat her in the school spelling bee. They must have misheard her because there's no way I outspelled her. But anyway, so they're using the LEM as a lifeboat. They realize now that they are going to have to change their trajectory because they're careening towards the moon for a landing. But now they need to careen their ass back to Earth. So they do a burn to extend their flight out around the moon. They're going to do a slingshot to get home. And so they're doing that. That comes a little tension as well because they have to fly a spacecraft that is now not only being flown from a different part of the spacecraft, the center of gravity is completely changed. It's a new spacecraft entirely. So Jim Lovell had to figure out how to fly with basically reverse controls and a totally different center of gravity while hurtling through space and doing all of that without knocking them off of their existing trajectories, which they had to correct on occasion. So it's very tense throughout that. At home, you've got family members in.
Awesome scene.
Yeah, That burn scene is really, really intense. And that's where we do get some of the real life chatter that happened on the radio that was a little bit tense. Because one of the key things that they have to maintain while they're flying through space is their orientation so that their navigation system knows where they are. And they have a system with 3 axes called a gimbal inside the spacecraft. And he has a little ball on his instrument panel that tells them where they are oriented based on where they're trying to fly. And if you get out of whack with that gimbal, it's called gimbal lock, and you are then basically just flying as you are. The navigation system resets itself because it's locked, and you are basically just flying chunk of metal, and you will have no control of where you go ever again from that point forward. And NASA is very worried about that, so they keep reminding Jim Lovell as he's flying the spacecraft during a high-intensity burn, hey, you're getting close to gimbal lock, make sure you're watching your 8-ball, and he's like, I'm aware of the frapping 8-ball. And that's when you get the, everything you're saying is going live, Jim, and he goes, what, are we on Vox? And you get this whole, tension with the spacecraft being in communication with the Earth when they just really want to talk to NASA. And or really just each other. So he switches off the radio, and that's the first sign of tension you really get with the guys. And then,
he did the typical thing. He's a dad driving the car. He's trying to pay attention. Someone turns on the overhead light in the back seat. It's dark. Suddenly, he's blind completely.
Yep.
And all he hears is, I want to stop him, man. Don't shut the fuck up, man.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Watch the 8-ball. Holy shit. Do you think I'm doing anything but watching the 8-ball right now?
I wish I could watch the fucking 8-ball, but the light's on in the back.
Yeah, exactly. But you fuckers are interrupting everything I'm doing just to tell me to watch the fucking 8-ball.
Did they make lights?
You don't come into this house and tell me you got a fucking 8-ball and not share.
Right. So
I listened to that entire fucking story about you getting a fucking 8-ball. You didn't even fucking share.
It's just wrong.
Party foul. So they got all that going on. Well, then they got a new problem because it turns out that the oxygen or the carbon dioxide scrubbers in the lunar module are not equipped for 3 people. So they have a big problem because all of the filters that they have for the 3-person command module are circular. and the receptacles in the lunar module for said filters are square. So NASA has to start figuring out how to put a square peg in a round hole, and I might have had that backwards, but they have to fix that because now they're risking dying of carbon dioxide poisoning, and that number is rapidly increasing because, again, the LEM is designed for 2 people, and they're breathing.
Every time they exhale, they're making more carbon
Sounds like you're talking about, like, I don't know, like global warming, but like in a micro aspect of it. So
yeah, very micro global warming. They were literally
in 1995. We were a little bit more concerned with blowjobs.
Yeah, what was or was not going on at the in the White House. We're not as worried about that anymore. So,
but actually, I don't think that happened until like 95, 90. Or I'm sorry, like
96.
But it doesn't matter. You get the point.
Yeah. Well, we were about to be worried about that. But yeah, I mean, it's one thing after another, and so you got a bunch of engineers back at Houston who have not slept now for 2 days, trying to keep these guys alive, and now they've got to solve a whole new problem that is rapidly becoming a bigger one. And they walk in the room, and guy's like, "We got to make this fit into that using nothing but this," and so they get to work and pretty quickly come back with a filter that they can use as a converter to keep them alive. They give them a procedure, they slap it together up on the spacecraft. The next thing you know, they're breathing clean again. And it was just, wow, that was fast.
Ultimate DIY science project.
Yep. Engineers.
DIY, sorry.
Whenever, no, it's just fine. It's like whenever they were waking everyone up, they were on their like 3-hour shifts of sleep. And they were like, all right, we're running out of time. They've got like 4 hours left. We've got to get this done. Here's the project, everything else. There's that one dude who's like, I'm worthless before my coffee. I'm going to need at least 35, possibly 40. If I could, do you mind? And
at least a cigarette.
Yeah, I mean, have a quick cigarette. Gonna need to take a shit.
They were smoking in their sleep in those days. Like they had cigarettes lit in every scene of this movie.
That's actually true. Like you have to imagine every time they woke someone up in there, it was just a pile of phlegm and blood coughed out.
It's honestly amazing anybody in that era lived beyond the age of 65. If they did, they maybe didn't. I don't know, but
I've often wondered if I had. Like, if for whatever reason we like time traveled and like walked into a restaurant or like the NASA headquarters in 1972, would our lungs like atrophy on the spot because they're like just we think we like people smoke now, we'll have cigarettes, but it seemed like everyone in that era was just like chain smokers.
Oh man,
not like I have occasional one. Like it was like we walked into
that Adderall smoke mentality.
Yeah,
like, they all took 80 milligrams of Adderall and had 2 packs of cigarettes and a lot of nerves.
A lot of nerves.
Just all day, every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I smoked back in the day, but I don't think I could have kept up with them 2 packs at a time.
Well, and never inside a house. We were doing, me and Kay had been looking at houses. We walked into a house to look at it, and as soon as I opened the door, I just turned around and walked out because you could tell that whoever lived there before had been smoking cigarettes on the couch for every minute of every day until they moved out. And it was just like, nope, not living there. Yeah. But anyway.
It takes a special kind of dedication to smoke inside and live inside.
Yeah, that's
environment.
Self-deprecation, but, anyway. So after they find a way to fit a square peg into a round hole, the astronauts are saved and they can continue flying around the moon. They've done their burn to correct their trajectory, and now they're headed back. They get
and you got Gary Sinise doing his kind of work in the background the entire time.
Yeah,
with no measles.
Yeah, Gary Sinise is back at home, sans the measles, and he is hard at work. In the movie, it's just him and the simulator trying to figure out how to power everything back up, because once they get back to Earth and they need to re-enter the atmosphere, they're going to want heat shields and parachutes, and they need to be in a command module, which is currently turned off. So he's trying to figure all that out at home. Now, in the movie, they make it out to be like he's the only one. There were teams of people working on this. He was one of them, but anyway.
It was largely in the sequencing of turning everything on, because they had a certain amount of amperage they were able to use. And if you use too much at a certain point, you don't have enough for everything else. That was the entire purpose of him spending so much time in there, like 8 hours at a time, just trying to figure out the right way to turn everything back on that they needed, without using up the entirety of the battery that was available.
Yep, amperage is key, and some of the smartest people at NASA were working with him, and you get even more tension there because he's like, I know what the goddamn amperage is. The sequence doesn't work, and they're just yelling at each other, in the simulator. They're trying to give him flashlights. They're not. He's like, do they have that on the spacecraft? And they're like, no. He's like, then get it out of here. He's got rules.
You know what else they didn't have on the spacecraft? Fucking measles.
Yeah. Who
much the same as the simulator.
Yeah. Similarly, so it's just the same. But well, ironically, at some point after they've turned all the power off and they're freezing cold, Bill Paxton playing Fred Hayes has developed a very severe urinary tract
UTI.
infection. Yeah, UTI as a result of dehydration. But he thinks that Jack Swigert gave him the clap. So that's pretty funny, that little exchange there. So they're flying, they're freezing. Guys at home are working on turning things back on. But at some point, they do actually go around the backside of the moon, and everybody gets a chance to look at it. As they're doing so, bear in mind, this is Jim Lovell's second trip to the moon. Apollo 8 entire mission was to establish that they could go to the moon and orbit it and then come back, which they did. It was never intended to land. So Apollo 13 was his chance to land on the moon. And obviously he knows they're not going to do that anymore. And so the other two guys are getting their fill of the view. They're like, Jim, you want to see this? He's like, no, I've seen it before. Let's get the hell out of here and go home. Because he just can't.
Over here trying not to fucking die while y'all are touristing out.
Yeah.
Whatever. I guess I'll be here working on math. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get both sides of it. Because from his perspective, he's seen the surface of the moon from up close through the window once. And, he's seeing it over their shoulders now. They've never seen it before, so it's fair of him to let them have their shake. But as soon as they turn around and they're like, what do you want to do? He's like, gentlemen, what are your intentions? They're like, what are you talking about? It's like, are we going to the moon or are we going home? And they want to go home. So they start their way back around.
What if it have been a 2 out of 3? Like Tyler said earlier.
Yeah, voted him down.
2 out of 3. Let's go home. And
no, we're landing.
We're just right
the lens
there.
powered up, man.
Yeah.
What's the worst?
NASA says we can't do it, but what if we can?
They say we're going to run out of fuel, but so does my car.
Maybe we won't.
We're going to run out of fuel anyways. Why are we going to run out of fuel halfway through on the way back home on a fool's errand? Guys, what if we just spent our last moments just on the moon?
You got a defeatist attitude over here, but also a can-do attitude.
There may have been, it's never been publicized, but they did have contingency plans for on Apollo 11 if the moon landing failed and they'd crashed, or they had they'd been unable to launch themselves back off the moon. They had contingency plans for what they would do. They would make final statements, and then they would cut the radio feed and let those men have their final moments as they wished. I doubt there was any formal plan for if you're on your way to the moon and then you crash out and you can't make it home, should you just land anyway? I doubt they had that on paper, but I wonder if it didn't go through their minds we're probably not going to make it home based on our situation, so why don't we just land on the moon? I don't know. Would have been interesting to know if anybody had that thought.
Probably physics would intervene, but
I had to have thought that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're going to die here. But then you can't really dwell on that because what's the alternative?
Yeah, they asked all the astronauts that after they got back, and Jim Lovell's answer was pretty much that. It was yeah, we were aware of the stakes and what could happen, but we didn't really have time to sit and think about that. We had to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and go until we ran out of things to do, and hopefully that ended well. But
I don't know about y'all, but if I was on that space mission and I was part of the crew, as soon as the first thing fucked up, I would be like, get the fucking engineering staff in here.
Oh my God.
They are going to get hell from me because they had one fucking job, build a spacecraft that doesn't explode. And seemingly, they built it in sections that keep exploding.
Yeah, and also they don't fit together.
Thanks, guys.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
No, don't go with that.
No,
Stop it. You're part of the problem.
That's a line from the movie.
Everyone fucks up.
That's a line from the movie when they discovered the fact that
I know, because Reagan ruined it all.
Oh well, yeah. That was after. That was what he came after. They can't blame that on Reagan.
No, they can. He's the one who started saying government was inefficient, bad, and shouldn't.
Yeah, but I'm saying he wasn't president until later. But anyway, so they're headed home, and they've got oxygen.
But the movie was made in '95, and that was a throwback to what.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, fair enough. So they're heading home, and they've fixed all of their immediate problems, so they're going to make it home alive. Now, the problem they have is twofold. As we've already talked about, they have to power up successfully, which they are still working on a procedure for that, and they're worried about damage to the heat shield because of the explosion, And as a result of the batteries being very cold for long stretches of time in space, the parachutes might not work. So
they commissioned Jack Swaggart to go back there and warm them up a touch.
So Jack Swaggart starts docking with the parachutes. No, hey, that is hearsay. We were joking.
You want to open up for Daddy?
Yeah.
Providing lubrication.
A little oil, shall we?
Yeah. So they're careening. They're careening back towards the Earth, and they've got.
I think the parachute's going to work just fine.
They're careening back towards Earth. They've done their burn adjustments, but NASA keeps noticing that they're coming up shallow. So it looks like, despite their burns, they run the risk of skipping off the Earth's atmosphere, which unfortunately for them would be the end of their lives. So they're coming back. They're worried about all of that stuff. And at home, bear in mind, we mustn't forget the children and the wives. They're back at home. They've been listening to every single stressful event that's gone along the way. They know of all the risks that have been going on, and Marilyn Lovell is at her wit's end. But she comes across a video being played on the news of her husband in an interview previously, of Jim Lovell giving an interview about a time he was in the Navy, and he was flying under combat conditions, so he had all of his running lights off, as did the ships. They were on very basic radio communications, which he'd lost, and he was trying to find the ship itself and got separated from his flight. And he had cockpit lights, and he went to turn on a map light so he could see if he could figure out where he was. And when he did, it shorted out the cockpit instruments, including the lights. And when everything went dark, he was suddenly able to see the glow of the bioluminescence churned up by a large ship, in this case, USS, whatever he was on, aircraft carrier. And he was able to find his way home. No, it was not. It was not that. He's telling this story of him being able to find his way home in the dark because of a malfunction, not in spite of, but actually because of a malfunction. And so that's kind of like a heartening moment for Marilyn that she gets to see. Stress is not gone, of course, and now they're getting close. They're getting worried. They need those power-up procedures, so they're calling home. They're like, "Hey guys, what you got?"
Who's it they send to Lowell's mom? Armstrong and
Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin.
Yep.
to go comfort his mom.
Yep.
And she's like, "Who are you nice young boys?
Are you with the space program too? Do you fly with Jimmy?" Yeah. They're like, yeah. Yep, sure do. And it's funny too. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought her up, because they go to visit her at the nursing home, and she has unfortunately been the victim of a stroke. So they're worried about how well she's going to handle the news. And she's very frustrated with the staff at the nursing home because they can't get the broadcast on television, which is not their fault, as it were. It's because no one picked it up. But so the kids get there, and Marilyn Lovell is there, and they're explaining what happened to her. And, I'm watching this movie with Kate. She's worried she's like, why are they even telling her? It's just going to upset her. And Marilyn and Jim Lovell's mother looks at the little girl and says, "If they could get a washing machine to fly, my Jimmy could land it." I'm like, because she's tough enough to handle it is why they're telling her, because she came from a lot tougher shit than the rest of us did. And so that's a great scene. I'm glad you brought that up, Tyler, because, yeah, everybody's worried, except for maybe Jim Lovell's mother, who is just like, he's fine. He's still alive. He'll be all right. So you get all of that, and then you get to the final moment. They get the power-up procedures finally, thanks to Ken Mattingly and Gary Sinise's portrayal. They succeed in getting all of the stuff turned on without blowing up anything else and or losing power for the rest of the flight in. So they go ahead and undock from the lunar module, and that is still attached to the service module as well, and they get to see... Well, I'm sorry, they detach from the lunar module first, and then they eventually detach from the service module, and they get to see the service module itself, which is where the explosion happened, and they're shocked to see the vast destruction that has happened on the side of their aircraft, and realize that it got very close to where the heat shield was. And so they don't know if there's any...
really did a number on that one.
Yeah, Swaggart was really, really docking hard. But so that's a deep concern because... As we know, being old enough to remember the Columbia disaster, cracks in the heat shield are a big problem, and so they're very worried about that. And there's nothing they can really do about the parachutes. They will either shoot out or they will not. They don't have any additional methods of recourse on that front. So they basically hit the atmosphere, hauling ass. Unfortunately, light on moon rocks, which is why they're coming in shallow. And
they ain't even moving.
Yeah, they are moving. It looks like they're
tearing
moving.
Ass across the yard, but they ain't even moving.
But in this case, they are moving. I don't remember what terminal velocity is, but when they hit the atmosphere, it's significantly higher than that because They've been flying through space and blasting rockets the whole way. So they are cruising, and the risk is either that they go too deep and they burn up in the atmosphere, or they skip off the atmosphere. And I don't know which way that's going to go. And unfortunately for everybody at home who's worried about them, radio contact is not an option when one is re-entering the atmosphere because of the ionization that's going on as you create friction with the atmosphere in your spacecraft. So it's radio silence, and at this point in the space program, it has never taken a flight more than 4 minutes to come out of radio blackout once they've gone through the re-entry process. And at this time, the United States had never lost an American in space or that had left the ground in a rocket. They unfortunately did lose the crew to Apollo 1 in a fire that was sadly tragic. And of course, much like the situation we're currently in, one of those kind of things that happened years in advance that there's very little they could have done to prevent in the moment.
They had a bad door.
I'm cutting both of your audio.
Bad door. They should have done something about it. I'd have fixed it.
So it's stated in the movie that 4 minutes is the longest anyone's ever gone into radio blackout and come out the other side. And then the dramatic music starts playing. You get cutscenes from Marilyn Lovell and the kids to the son who's back at military academy. He's sitting in class while his entire rest of his class watch to see if his dad's going to die.
Still very quiet and very mannerful.
Yeah, very quiet. And so that tension builds, and you've got the entire control room watching in silence, just waiting, and they're calling up, Gemini, this is Houston, do you read? And silence. And you get to the 4 minute mark and nothing happens, and it just keeps ticking, and the clock gets to 5 minutes, and you kind of get the teacher walks up to the son and puts the hand on his shoulder like, sorry, we just watched your dad die on national television. That's a bummer.
And that's going to be a couple of demerits because it means you're weak.
Yeah. And
you got that dad who died.
and in real life, it was this stressful for everyone involved, I am sure, but the movie does an amazing job of stretching the tension, building the tension. The music, you just don't know if they're coming out. Even though you do know that they are coming out the other side, the film just doesn't let you believe that. You have suspended your actual belief, and you are now part of the film, and you are just on tenterhooks with everybody else. And then one of the best parts of any movie that has space flight involved is the raucous celebration of the control room. Do you guys have any thoughts on any particular ones other than this one? Because the one that happens in this movie is great, but any real life ones that you can remember being equally as amazingly raucous?
Rockets? No. I mean,
space flight.
I remember when Terrence Cody blocked the field goal against Tennessee.
I watched
and
that
the
night.
Raucous.
Similar, yeah.
That was probably
energy.
the closest thing I would personally feel like that, like the sheer terror and panic suddenly being replaced by exultant joy and like pandemonium that I personally experienced. Like that's like the only thing that I could kind of say would be like the closest thing on par to. I mean, I realized the stakes weren't nearly as high. Like, God, could you imagine losing to Tennessee?
Yeah, that's a good point. That was similar stakes and an equal explosion of joy afterwards. However, Thomas, what I meant was, can you think of another movie scene involving a control room with that explosiveness, or a real life scene of a control room that we've seen?
Real fast, because I'm going to explode if I don't at least mention that what they should have also shown in this is that, again, while they're showing Jim Lovett's son sitting there at that early 1970s military academy, I would imagine the headmaster, as he's sitting there placing his hand upon his shoulder, has to lean down, change his report card from, geography A, math A, alive parents, sadly, failure.
Yeah.
And
that was definitely on the report cards of the 1970s.
Well, I mean, again, we're trying
that matters
to be
a lot.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean,
did they succeed in their mission, son?
Yeah. Did he fail? Because
so it was a failure.
You know what the report's going to say if your mom dies? You're dead too.
Anyway, so other things with that kind of Independence Day.
Top Gun, the first one.
Independence Day as well.
I thought both of you were in the room when we saw the Curiosity Mars rover land and the NASA control room lose their mind on that one. That was pretty cool.
I did see that. I don't think I was with you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That one. And then there's been a couple of other ones.
You did say movies, right?
I said movies or real life. I said movies or real life. But yeah, movie ones other than that one, yeah, I think you're right. Probably Independence Day when they declare they've achieved victory.
And Top Gun.
Top Gun's a good one too. Yeah.
And Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess it happens in any kind of...
I mean, they blew up Death Star twice.
Right, but the control room scene is unique. So you get a really great emotional ending payoff there with everybody celebrating, and that part in and of itself, it doesn't matter how many times I've seen the movie or the fact that I've known the outcome of this mission since the first time I was old enough to read about it. I always get a little choked up at the end. But I got to admit, after the movie was over, I watched the documentary that's on Netflix right now. It's called Survival, and it's about this exact story, but it's like the real stuff. And, every time they showed Jim Lovell, I got choked up. And at the end credits, it was made in 2024, and Marilyn Lovell passed away in 2023. So it just says in memory of Marilyn Lovell. And I was just bawling at that point. I was like, damn, all the America and all the space memories and all the nostalgia is just like, bam, all up in you. But yeah, so this movie to me has always been an excellent portrayal of NASA and the ingenuity of the people on the ground and mission control. The calmness and the professionalism of the astronauts and everybody involved has been always an inspiration to me personally. So yeah, his death in this movie, watching it as kind of inspired by that moment, was just a different beast this time around than it's ever been. Did you guys have any thoughts on, not necessarily having, I don't know if you watched it again recently, but just the NASA in general? Thomas, go ahead.
Movies like this were made for the mid-'90s. Forrest Gump comes to mind. Obviously, Apollo 13. I'm sure, obviously, Saving Private Ryan even. I mean, like, this was the time period right there where you had nostalgia films post-Cold War, post what we thought was going to be the democratic age of the future. Because, again, like, it looked like democracy had won everywhere. I mean, hell, it was a wonderful time to be alive. So what else could you do but reflect back upon the times that got you there? Things about Americana that made us to where we all considered ourselves to be a little bit above, like that special nation, because we kept proving it time and time again up until recently.
Everything was star-spangled awesome.
I mean, that was a wonderful time, and like Ron Howard took full advantage, and he did a great job, man.
Apollo 13, peak of his powers, and he made fucking Hillbilly Elegy.
Yeah. Yeah, I never saw that, nor will I. But anyway,
no, I'll never see it.
That. I read the book, that piece of shit, that charlatan. I could tell by the end of it was kind of bullshit. Yeah, but that's fine. Like, whenever you start taking up for payday loan places, you're probably the bad guy. Yeah, and fucking a couch. I know that's not in there. I know, but he fucked a couch. Why not?
Yeah, of course he did.
But it was his cameo in the studio time was pretty fucking hilarious.
It was really funny.
Well, so what happened with J.D. Vance?
Did you see that?
J.D. Vance called Jimmy Fallon. He was like, I want to make it in showbiz. He's like, you need to suck the dick of every dude you see, or you need to just go down every woman you see. Because I will want to point out that Jimmy Fallon's we're not making gay jokes. This is about his professional sacrifice. He is willing to perform cunnilingus or fellatio on any and all executives to get his movies or shows.
He took the Nancy Reagan route.
Right. So you do that.
She was known as a broker in Hollywood.
But JD was, not feeling that. So he was like, I'll just fuck all the couches they do the casting on, and misunderstood a whole other genre of porn. And that's how we get JD Vance fucks couch.
Great movie.
After that emotional. Yeah, Tyler. Go ahead.
Oh, great movie. No notes. The special effects still hold up. Yeah. The filming and the jet that went up and down so they could simulate gravity.
Yeah.
That was like one of those really cool makings of.
Tyler, to that point, do you mind if I interrupt 2 seconds? You know what pissed me off about Ron Howard that I could always tell he was lying about? Is whenever they were talking about the production of this movie, he was like, I thought we'd just go and get in the anti-gravity machine. What are you, fucking stupid? No, you didn't. I don't know why he said it like so many times.
Yeah.
Stop lying.
It was one of those dad jokes he thought was really funny that nobody else
It's not funny. It's a lie.
Yeah.
So how many years until Tom Cruise films a movie actually in space?
Next year.
Yeah, are they not already doing that? I thought they were doing that, actually. Well, there's nothing left to do. There's nothing left for him to do. He bodily...
I realize I'm like different movie franchise here.
Well, but it's a fair question because much like the people watching the return flight of Apollo 13 in real life thought they might also watch the death of 3 astronauts. Anytime you go see a film that involves Tom Cruise, especially right now, it is going to involve the off chance that you get to see his death on screen. Because I'm not sure he doesn't have it built into his contracts that whenever he does a movie, that if I die, you put that motherfucking shit in the movie.
I got to assume he's going to want to. Yeah, he's going to want to get paid for that too.
And frankly, I want to see it. I want to know what could possibly kill Tom Cruise. But maybe re-entering Earth's atmosphere without any amount of heat shielding is what he'll do to make his final send-off the most colorful. But I don't know.
Do you think it's just that Tom Cruise has won at life so hard that like he's tired of it?
Yeah, it's probably. I mean, I don't know if he's a billionaire yet, but it's probably the same condition that billionaires fall into. They're just bored.
Amount of money,
he's got to be bored.
Yeah, I mean, like he's been a Lothario in Hollywood for what, like 40 years?
Yeah,
almost 50.
Gotta be tired, you know.
I mean, what else can you do?
But yeah, no, I agree with you, Tyler.
You walk on the plane's wing.
Yeah, you jump out of the plane and get into another plane. You just do it.
Sometimes you're on a motorcycle and then you're hopping onto planes. I don't know. Whatever you want.
Doesn't matter. You're Tom Cruise. You can do anything.
Xenu says you can do it. You believe in it.
Oh, maybe that's what's happening. He's being told by someone else.
Maybe he's right. All evidence points to. He looks great.
Is he about to elevate? Is he going to be ascendant or whatever happens? I don't care.
I don't know. He's 66 and looks 40.
Yeah, no shit.
Problem is, I can never stare at his smile the same way after realizing his teeth are actually fundamentally crooked.
And now I'll never unsee it.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, so his front two teeth, the dental surgery he had to have to fix it, like shifted everything. So one of his teeth lines up perfectly with his nose. So next time you like see his smile, you realize his teeth are actually off.
Cool.
And I think that's why his smile is unique.
What's wrong with him?
Well, yeah, he smashed his face on a plane or something.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah,
saved him.
But yeah, so his teeth like lines up like his like left like front tooth actually lines up perfectly with the bridge of his nose. And ever since someone pointed that out, I can never unsee it. So, anyways, it has nothing to do with Apollo 13, and that's probably a good way to end this podcast. But Tom Cruise has a crooked tooth; his teeth are off kilter, and that's why his smile is the Tom Cruise smile.
I like when Tyler decides.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes the podcast.
Yeah. So, just a couple of last notes before we conclude the podcast. Despite
that, ladies and gentlemen, prolongs the podcast.
Yes, thank you. I need you to actually. I need you for all segues. It's just, ladies and gentlemen, the next topic will be discussed.
Next podcast upcoming.
Yes.
Segment 2, Section 3, Grant Stewart.
Honestly, that was one of the funniest parts of the Monty Python podcast. Is at the end, and, and that concludes this podcast. Click. That was perfect. Anyway, yeah, no, Tyler, what you said earlier about it being a great movie and no notes, I completely agree with. And you know, there's a part of me watching any space movie that comes to it with a pretty shrewd eye for mistakes, because you and I, and John as well, spent a lot of time watching all the NASA documentaries and going to the space station or space centers and seeing all of the actual displays of all this stuff. So we know what is and isn't correct. But according to even the astronauts and Jim Lovell himself, who was a consultant on the movie, obviously, as he wrote the book that predated it, made a point to talk about how when they were in mission control on the movie set, it was indistinguishable from the one in Houston. And that was true of all the spacecraft designs and all that stuff. And yeah, they had to cram all that stuff into the Vomit Comet, as it's called, while they were doing the parabolic flights to simulate weightlessness. And it came off to great effect, obviously. And so I've always given this movie a pass for any changes it made to the actual events, because what they did change were subtle things like Ken Mattingly being the sole person to figure out how to power up. And it's not any disrespect to the people that did it, but when you're making a movie, you have to have some clarity and, you know, conciseness. Yeah. So make it one person. And he was a good representative because he is the one that came back in and told them what happened. So, you know, that kind of stuff was great. And the other stuff they did, all they really did was dramatize it a little bit, but there was really no alterations of fact. Everything that was depicted in the movie more or less happened in real life as depicted, with a couple of exceptions, like Marilyn Lovell's ring falling into the shower. That did happen, but they just got it out. It wasn't gone. It wasn't that big a deal. But it was very dramatic in the movie, and it fed into the bad luck stuff, you know, that was going on early on too. So it was interesting. But yeah, overall, one of my favorite movies about space. Ron Howard's probably one of his best works. It just, like you guys said, it fell into that swath of movies that were star-spangled awesome at every turn. Independence Day, Jurassic Park was great. You know, that was a good run. The 90s, the pre-9/11 days, there's a reason we all felt that way and why these movies were depicted the way they were, because
kids today will never understand what it was like growing up in the 90s when everything was just fucking fine.
Right. We argued about politics in class, literally on purpose, and it never went beyond like a raised voice. And at the end of it, we were like, yeah, I see what you're saying. And we all went and played recess and did whatever was going on that day.
Every now and again, like every 3 or 4 years, we just launched some missiles at Iraq, and then we just kind of stopped worrying about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a smart way to look at it, but yeah, that's what we did.
The 90s were great. But yeah, you're right. All we did was launch some cruise missiles, and everybody moved on. So,
if not for Glass-Steagall, I think we really knocked it out of the park.
So, we'll wrap it up there. I appreciate you guys coming on and doing one, especially one that's not itself all that silly or funny, because we've been on a good run of silliness, and that's going to continue with Life of Brian when that comes out in a little while here, because I think that's ready to upload. But look forward to seeing you guys next week when we do Happy Gilmore, and Brandon will be back, and he is definitely going to get divorced for something he says on that episode. I am sure of it. And if not, I'm going to make sure of it. So we'll see. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Love you, Allison. Bye.
And that concludes the podcast.